Hey listeners, let's talk about revolutionizing your mining operation with Foreman. This isn't your average management tool. It's an all-in-one solution for reducing costs and significantly boosting your revenue. Foreman brings a cutting-edge dashboard to your fingertips, empowering you with automated energy strategies. This means not only curtailing around real-time prices, but also strategically enhancing your profit margins through demand response. It's about leveraging energy efficiency to its fullest potential. With Foreman, you get a system that scales with your business, inventory management for assets, infrastructure integration, and business intelligence. Foreman elevates the cash flow and production of your entire operation. To see how Foreman can redefine your mining operation standards, visit foreman.mn. With Foreman, you're not just managing a mining operation, you're setting a new standard in the industry.
Accelerated by Compass is the premier accelerator program for Bitcoin mining sites at any stage of development. Our managed services provide expert guidance in site procurement, construction, energy agreements, and mining operations. Compass helps clients meet timelines and expectations for operational excellence, from greenfield to retrofits and everything in between. Don't just mine, excel. Visit compassmining.io now to discover how Accelerated by Compass can power your success.
Are you a retail or institutional investor interested in Bitcoin mining companies? The Miner Mag brings you free data and analysis from all major NASDAQ-listed Bitcoin mining operations to know who stands out. Check out visualized metrics and data-dependent stories at theminermag.com. Frank, Aydin, welcome to the Mining Pod. Thanks for jumping over here from the main venue and joining the show. Appreciate your time.
Well, it's great to be with you in person.
Yeah, finally.
You know, I've never met you in person.
Yeah.
And you're so tall. You look like a hoopster.
I did play basketball. Did you guys play sports at all?
We both played hoops.
There we go. Okay, we'll have to do basketball.
When I jump, I can't even touch the net now, but I used to get my hand in.
Well, awesome. Okay, we got like 30, 45 minutes to go through everything with you guys. Definitely want to do an update. I think the last time we had you on the show was remote about a year ago, and certainly a lot has changed. So let's do like intro bios for like the new audience, because this is going to like CoinDesk now. It's a different audience in a lot of ways. And then let's go through Hive and Hive's 2023, 2024 to catch everyone up. And then we'll jump into all the new news, the 100 megawatt purchase you guys have, the HPC strategy, all that. But Frank, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, I'm known for the world of gold, mutual funds, and the creation of gold royalty companies. And I have JETS ETF and Gold ETF on the New York Stock Exchange. And I was trying to launch a Bitcoin ETF in 2017. And I got shut down and realized that if I went into crypto mining, I would have the virgin coins, so therefore I wouldn't have an AML KYC risk. Mm-hmm. And that led to the idea of me putting up $5 million and immediately other institutions came in for the creation and the launch of the first crypto mining company called Hive. Aydin Kilic is our CEO, and he's going to give you much more of that granularity. And he's done a marvelous job that I'm very proud of for the past 18 months. We have the lowest shareholder dilution. We have the lowest G&A to mine a Bitcoin. And we made $37 million. And we built our hodl to plus 2,500 on the balance sheet, all green and clean coins. And I think we have probably the highest revenue per employee of the miners. And mm-hmm. So I got to be really proud. Even during when Bitcoin went from 67,000 down to 16, mm-hmm. we made money every quarter. We didn't go bankrupt. We didn't have any other drama that was along with where Bankman fried the whole industry, et cetera. You know, we were able to. It was tough, but we went through Ethereum going from proof of stake to proof of work to proof of stake. Yeah, they went to the dark side, and that was sad for us as a business, because it was always high profitable business. Mm-hmm. And we lived through it all. Yeah. We lived through the bankruptcies, Ethereum going, and Aydin's just done a great job, as they say in hockey, stick handling the puck and getting a lot of elbows as he's doing it. So I'll turn over to Aydin.
Yeah, that was a great intro, Frank. I mean, what do I say? Hive is the first public crypto miner ever. I mean, it was super inspiring. It hit $1 billion market cap within a month of going public in September 2017. And, you know, growing up in Vancouver, I did engineering and some commercial real estate. And I just saw this amazing new technology that I was drawn to. And I think we've seen so many intelligent people drawn to the world of Bitcoin, right? Coders, electrical engineers, I mean, there's even authors that have such a great philosophy about how Bitcoin's the world's decentralized energy-backed currency. That's why we're all here. And so I think that it's been a wild ride. I joined Hive in 2021. We really have been a company of firsts. If you look at our earnings webcast, one of my favorite slides has Usain Bolt, right? And so it's all the innovations, right? First to have an Ethereum strategy, first to put data centers on the balance sheet, first to build our own ASIC mine, which we did with Intel. First public crypto miner ever. And there's 6 of them. And so with being an innovator, right? It's not easy because you're kind of pioneering in a way. So that's where a lot of cool stuff happens at Hive. So when we had these NVIDIA GPUs, everyone was doubting us when the merge was coming, right? And it was so crazy because and I know we're at the Bitcoin conference, but look, we were one of the world's largest Ethereum miners.
Yeah.
And it was such a high margin business. At the end of the day, we're a public company, want to deliver value for shareholders, right? So we never got credit for the Ethereum business because people are like, well, the merge is going to happen. So we don't know, and then when it happened, we navigated through that. We stick handle the puck, as Frank said.
Yeah.
And then
just a couple of saying what we did strategically. Remember, we bought all those NVIDIA chips.
Exactly.
But we bought the NVIDIA chips, unlike our peers, that could only mine Ethereum. Ours allowed us to pivot into the AI business.
Yeah.
And we're the skill set. The HPC business, I see these headlines. We're in the AI business. It's it's so difficult.
Yeah.
It's much more challenging in so many ways. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a kid with a big Lego set, brand new, but it's complex. And so we were able to start to pivot over in that direction as we sort of build out and we've got some exciting news, so we'll stay tuned for the next interview.
Yeah. Sure you don't want to break it today?
No.
Later,
Gotta make sure
later.
with the regulatory world that, but we're working on stuff that I think is really important, as everyone is. But it's been really hard, Will, to find 100 megawatts of green energy.
Yeah.
And you spend so much time on due diligence, the same for 6 megawatts in Quebec as 30 megawatts in Manitoba. And you find all these provinces, they're all racist against orange. The color that they're racist against is orange. and you see in countries like Sweden, it's ASIC chip.
Yeah.
I mean, they actually come out and say ASIC chip is evil, bad.
Yeah.
And so we found, where do we get size to move the dial? And we're excited about it. It's lower priced energy than other places. Like in Sweden, they increase the tax a lot. Fortunately, we have a strong hedging program in how we manage that. But otherwise, we'd have to leave the country. And that tax in Sweden wasn't just against orange, but that was another part of it. Remember, they went to all data centers. So Facebook, they have a huge data center near us for all of the northern part of Europe. And so now, who wants to go to Sweden when you have that sort of instability?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of governments have to wake up. If you want Bitcoin mining to become a solution to your problems, well, you better have fiscal stability.
Let's talk about 2023 and 2024 to catch people up. What have you guys been doing over the last 18 months to sort of set yourselves up for this bull market and for the moving more so into AI HPC? Because you guys have been doing that for a while, but you guys are focusing more on that.
We did a massive fleet upgrade. We bought over 30,000 ASICs over the course of a year to strategically get our fleet efficiency down to 24.5 joules a terahash. And we did that very much as if we were snipers, right? So every time we work with all the brokers, we work with the big three as well. And whenever Frank's a money manager, right? Money's always got to be performing. So we've never, put out $10 million deposit for machines arriving in 9 months. It's always orders, immediate delivery, plunk them in, right? So you're always having the best cash flow return on invested capital. That's it. That's our mandate. And so we would look at when the K Pro came out, right? There was phenomenal deals at $11 a terahash, and people were paying $24 a terahash for XPs. It's are you crazy? But either people aren't doing the math or they just want it has more terahash, right? It's that's not it's ROI, right? Because you have to make your money back in that first year,
Yeah.
and then free cash flow for the next 2-3 years.
What's your ROI time typically for an ASIC you guys try to look at?
We always try to aim for 1 year,
Okay.
where possible, for sure. Yeah, and obviously it's so time variant, right, with hash price. But when you buy and time your machine purchases correctly, you can get really attractive deals. So I think, Frank, we bought a bunch of J Pros. This was like maybe 2 years ago at like $10 a terahash in the wake of like the FTX scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And the crisis moment, we put a bid in.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Buy when there's blood in the streets,
Yeah.
right? So you have to be a little bit relentless in that mindset. Have a good treasury management system. But I think as Frank opened, we actually increase our HODL since the halving, right? Which I think is a testament to our team's resilience. And in addition to that, having low dilution, we use the money from the business to grow the business, right? Like it would be so much easier if we would just like have 400 million cash sitting on the balance sheet like some of our peers do. But
over $100 million of Bitcoin you just bought today, right? With Marathon. That was some news.
Really?
Yeah. Do you see that this morning?
Yeah, just 20,000 Bitcoin they bought.
Well, we can get to that later if that was responsible or not. But I see your point there strongly.
And I love Michael Saylor saying, why need to buy 26.2? And because your name's Marathon, which is pretty funny, 26.2 miles to a marathon.
Yeah.
But it's great. I think he's really cognizant that having Bitcoin on your balance sheet is very appealing to Bitcoin investors, and we know this, but you get this pushback at board. So justify why you're doing it, because I read an article that Irene, the Dream over here, Iris Energy, they sell all their coins and there's no reason for it. And it's interesting to see as you listen to these other people, well, that's their strategy. CleanSpark just started putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They never owned it because they realized that shareholders want that. My experience in the gold fund business, it lends itself that the gold stocks, which had the highest price to book value in the 90s, had the most gold in their balance sheet. And the gold analysts would turn around and complain about they should be selling it. And Rob McEwen said, I have the highest grade of gold in the world. It's too cheap to sell at 270.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing here. If as much as we can hodl and grow and hodl, then we're going to do that.
To Aydin's point, though, how do you keep the capital working for you if it's just like a Bitcoin hodl? Is it just like it's worth it because the share price appreciates?
The thing is, we're all Bitcoiners, right? At the end of the day, so we believe in the long-term intrinsic value. By the way, we haven't really talked about our green energy strategy, which is a focal point of our ethos. So we have virgin green energy mined Bitcoin, right? So there's not a lot of those in the world, and so there's something special about our hodl, right? And by the way, we do sell some to, pay for operations, right? Yeah. What I'm talking about, and I think what Frank's alluding to, is there's these two goalposts, right? There's these two extremes. Guys that just, print shares to run the business, like literally print shares to pay electricity bills, pay your staff, sponsor a conference, whatever.
Yeah.
And then guys that sold all their Bitcoin, like I think, you're alluding to CleanSpark, and had nothing on the hodl. We've always had a hybrid strategy, right? So how do we run the business on first principles? Like I got into mining back in 2017, right? So I founded Cathedral, and it was called Fortress. And back then I learned from guys that were mining since 2013, right? And so all the guys that were mining in the old school, you have to be able to pay your bills, pay off your machines, and eventually be able to re-up to newer machines when the efficiency of your machines is no longer profitable, right?
Yeah.
Back then, you didn't have the American capital markets, which came in 2021. Hive, Bitfarms, Hut 8, the original three were all Canadian capital market stories, right? All the money was funded out of Toronto in the hundreds of millions of dollars. 2021, it was billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's just been on America's 10x Canada. And so we've almost seen that multiple. And so now, with so many investment banks and research analysts, et cetera, covering it, the different ETFs are indexing Russell 3000. There's just more capital flowing in. So it's almost like a cheat code.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so we try to, it would almost, it's tempting sometimes to be like, we have conversations about it, but we've taken the road less traveled. We think at the end of the day, value investors will realize what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we are undervalued right now. And that's what makes us so attractive as a buy as well.
And I also should just compliment some of the companies like HUD 8. What kept them alive?
Yeah, they're hodl.
Their hodl position. And the whole valuation proposition they had was Jamie Leverton did a phenomenal job of protecting like their babies. This hodl position, and that allowed them to do this transition to the U.S. And that was pretty clever because there's these regulatory rules in the U.S. that you can't go into the indexes like Russell 2000 unless your home office is in the U.S. And so the big stock move this year for them was because they're in the Russell 2000.
Yeah.
Not really institutional buying unless they have a Russell 2000 ETF.
Yeah.
And so you say, okay, what helps drive that? Well, then you get the significance. And we take a look at their energy, and they use twice the amount of energy as us and produce less Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Well, what were those metrics? Like, what drives that? And I think what I'm seeing is Fred buying 20,000 more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
He is showing that it's just important to put that on your balance sheet to maintain the confidence of the shareholders. And that's what we found. And at one time we had the biggest Ethereum hodl. I mean, like Ethereum was trading at 3,000, was costing us $75 to make.
Yeah.
I mean, just think of that.
Yeah.
I mean, the margins, it was just unbelievable. And then we complained because it went to $300. And still, it was such a margin business.
In the competitive world of Bitcoin mining, one name stands out: CleanSpark, America's Bitcoin miner. At CleanSpark, efficiency isn't just a goal, it's our standard. Our sophisticated facilities are built and led by expert teams who care about Bitcoin and the communities we work in. Scale? We've mastered it. Our large-scale operations have set us apart in the industry as examples of community-oriented building. Our track record speaks for itself. We navigate the complexities of the new economy with precision and with skill, continuously achieving operational milestones. Curious about how we do it? We invite you to discover the story behind CleanSpark's success at cleanspark.com.
This is actually a really good question I wanted to get to that you guys have actually brought up. And that's like the conservative play where you grow and are trying to maximize those metrics, right? Like trying to decrease your joules per terahash, you're trying to increase your revenue per employee as compared to some of these other miners, which I'm not going to name. You guys feel free to do so, who are just kind of pushing down on dilution. They're pushing down on milking this bull market to be able to grow at all costs. There's an argument for both. You guys have been steady. You guys weather the bear market. I didn't see any negative headlines as opposed to a lot of other miners who did this strategy last cycle, right? They pushed really hard. But you do grow faster the other way, right? Like some of these other miners are going to get to 10, 15, 20 exahash pretty quickly, and their roadmaps call for 50 exahash. Now, if they get to 50, who knows? Because like we saw that last cycle too, where people were calling for 5 to 10 exahash and they never got there.
And by the way, some people went bankrupt in 2020.
Some people went bankrupt as well.
So,
yeah.
I think that it's sort of like a rope to hang yourself with, right?
Yeah.
So people think it's a game of scale. And
We're cautiously conservative.
Yeah.
And the worst part, you have to apologize for that. You never lost in a quarter. You made money every quarter.
Yeah.
One of my favorite slides, 3 years, not 3 quarters, 3 years, 12 quarters. We have a bar chart. And I got a shout out to Holly and her team for making this beautiful chart. It's our revenue and gross mining margin for 3 years. And they kind of earmark every macro event, the FTX collapse, ETH merge, Celsius, et cetera, et cetera. And Frank said this, but we made money. We had positive gross mining margin every single quarter for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Even when Bitcoin was 16,000. And on top of that, if you take our corporate G&A, which is about $3.2 million a quarter, and you subtract that, we still made money as a business on a cash basis, right? And I think that's a very powerful metric. I call that corporate margin, which is what's your gross mining margin minus your G&A. because some people have like insane amounts of G&A as well.
Yeah.
So a monster of a beast is a little company called Apple.
Yeah.
And Apple does, in the best times, a couple $1 million of revenue per employee. And in our worst times, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And last year was over 5 million per employee.
Yeah.
And so that is at the top end. And that's how we run our business. We don't want to have to apologize. We're green. It's been a real challenge to get Paraguay to find something that's 100 megawatts.
Yeah, let's talk about that if we may. Like, how did you guys come up with that deal? How did you source that? What was the things? It's really hard to do business down there. Like, people have been trying forever.
So we don't get brownie points for all the deals that we look at and don't do. But what Frank was alluding to, 6 megawatts in Quebec, 30 in Manitoba. We've scoured North America for scale, but green energy. And, you know, at one point we even contemplated doing a renewable deal where we would get into power production, but that's going to cost us 2 million a megawatt, because now you're an infrastructure builder for solar. And you look at the economics of that. Is it really worth spending that much per megawatt, right? And so, by the way, I believe we're the most globally diversified company in terms of operations now. With Paraguay, we'll be operating in 4 countries, right?
9 time zones.
Sweden, Iceland, Canada, and Paraguay, right?
Now Paraguay.
Yeah.
Right. And
Did you guys go down,
two
by the way?
hemispheres.
You know, that was a good point. We moved very quickly. And when we got confirmation that there was 100 megawatts or more, and Aydin was at the big conference in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I'm mobilizing the troops here, and grabbed Johanna comes flies from Barcelona because she speaks some Spanish. Grab Gabe, our general counsel. He speaks some Spanish. Yeah. Get Luke, and he's French and English from Montreal as our chief operating officer. And it's not easy to fly there. So everyone's got flights coming to get down there. And through the organization that Aydin and I are members of as YPO, so is the president of the country. So we start reaching out to set up a meeting. And then we had a meeting for an hour and a half with the president of the country and his chief ministers. We took a helicopter, and it was the first time for Luke and Gabe ever being in a helicopter. But it was the only way for us to go across the bottom of the country to see the dam, see where other people have sites, and then come back. And then we drove to an area where we want to build. And it's about an hour and a half from the capital.
Okay.
And so that's not too bad, like as a drive. It's a pretty drive. It's much safer country than I would say other countries in Latin America. Classic would be, and I would go to Peru, Chile for my funds, and it'd be the copper gold mining companies. You get on an Uber and you're on your phone, and an Uber going to the airport, and they'll tell you to hang up your phone because people in Peru, in Lima, will smash the window to steal your phone. And and graffitis over everything, and big chains come to close all the stores. You don't see that in Paraguay.
Yeah.
So like you feel a whole lot safer.
Yeah.
And so I felt that meeting the president, meeting contractors, meeting people that did work for other data center people, hearing the strengths and weaknesses of the country, we said, okay, we can scale, but right now we're going to go with this amount. And for us to go and put more capital at risk, it will require from us a fiscal stability agreement. Yeah. Because the president's a great guy, but what happens if the president's gone? Yeah. And so the only way to go past that term is to have a fiscal stability agreement.
Okay. So the 100 megawatts, was that like a threshold you guys needed to be able to pull the trigger on something like this? How do you guys think about the energy procurement?
And with the new machines, Aydin says, well, heck, that's almost going to be 7 exahash.
Yeah, it's a lot of density.
And so we add that, and we're upgrading. We're going to be at 12 exahash in the next 12 months. And so we looked at the construction costs. Like they were really attractive, weren't they? I think 160,000 a megawatt. Was that roughly?
So the way that we look at getting back to the ethos of best cash return on invested capital. Yeah. The other metric, if you will, or even constraint is, we haven't gone around spending 2 million or a million a megawatt to buy sites, which some companies did in the bull market, right? And so we want to say, like, how can we get sites at like a really attractive dollar per megawatt basis, right? To Frank's point. And this ticks all the boxes: cheap green energy, scale, and very attractive dollar per megawatt cost, right? So we and relationships with like Frank and the team at the president, right? It was awesome seeing my whole team with a president of a country, and so that those components really allow us to build this super scale site. And as Frank mentioned, right, getting to 12 exahash, we're aware of what's going on in the market. So people aren't going to get excited if we go from 5 to 6 or 7 exahash. So like, okay, so we've got to at least double this. How do we go from 12? And like, by the way, there's more scale than that we're contemplating, right? Yeah. So we are looking at 5 to 10 to 15 to 20, right? But we're very measured. And when we do it, I wish we got a benefit of the doubt multiple like some of our peers did, right? For us, it's always, we got to land a backflip perfectly. And then people are like, okay, now we'll clap for you, right? Yeah. It's a very attractive dollar per megawatt. We haven't said specifically.
And last month I was in Africa, in Zambia. So I met the president HH in Zambia. And they have surplus hydro. So what's interesting about countries like Paraguay and Zambia, they built these huge dams. They have this surplus electricity, and it's idle basically, or they sell it to countries around them who don't pay. Yeah, they don't pay. And Malay to have a group country leadership meeting in that part of South America, gave $100 million. He still owes close to another 100 million for electricity for years ago that the previous administration didn't pay. Yeah. Guess what? Bitcoin miners is a hedge. They get paid every month. Their banks can't protect. The peso's gone down. The dollar's gone up. Well, they need US dollars. So every month we pay them US dollars. And if you try to ask a bank to put on a currency hedge to protect the country, it break their capital. Yeah. So we are that type of, this is the word I'm looking for. We are a big benefit to the federal government. And then what we do locally, like in Boden, Sweden, we sponsor the hockey team and we help rebuild the arena. And you've got the Hive hockey team. That's like pro hockey.
The bees.
And so to me, it's that people know that we get involved with the community. We sponsor gamers in Boden. And so we're going to do the same here. We're going to set up a training program, put local people to work, for them to learn how to basically run a data center, all the things they have to go through. So we'll be in the job creation, education, and that's always been the Hive model. Yeah, that's not other people's model. And then we gave out RSUs. Everybody got RSUs, not just the top 2 people in a lot of these other companies. You can see, oh yeah, I got 50 million, I got 30 million. And that doesn't happen with us. It gets really well equally distributed to all the key people. And then right down to the person that has to plug in the machines, they get a little piece of the action
the
too.
Technicians at the site.
Oh, that's a nice little bump.
Everybody.
Yeah, lots of technicians listen to this show, so you guys might get some inbound leads from that.
And by the way, like we also sponsored the hockey team in New Brunswick as well. Yeah, the one in Sweden is spawned a couple of NHL players
because they have 3 Stanley Cup championship players that came out of that village.
By the way, I got one of their jerseys. It does have our logo on it. It's actually pretty rad. But yeah, I mean I think the community involvement is so important because, like when the first time I went to New Brunswick, first time I went there was to help with the acquisition, but after I went back to see the build out, I met the mayor, right? CBC, who's from Canada, it's the National Broadcast Network. They came out there to do an interview and the mayor was there. He was so happy. We meet with people at the provincial government. I think community involvement is so important because
Yeah.
I think, and this applies to everybody now. I'm just not talking about just Hive, but I think Bitcoin miners get this unfair, hey, we're coming to steal all your energy. It's like, that's the dumbest thing ever. We are large industrial customers.
Yeah.
We have contracts with utility companies that happily sell us power because it's a revenue generator for them, by the way.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, we as Bitcoin miners are very unique in that we have the ability to grid balance. And I know many people talk about this all the time, but it's a really important point. We've been doing it since 2020 in Sweden. We're the nation's largest demand response participant in the country of Sweden. How do I know? The national energy provider welcomed me with 4 levels of executive management when I went to Stockholm in 2021. I was on my way up to Boden. I was just like, wow, they rolled out the red carpet. They have a really cool building in downtown Stockholm. And I had a presentation for them to show them all the great things that they were doing. They had a presentation for me. I was like, this is fantastic, right? So like, it was a big love fest. It was, I was so stoked to be there. So I think that we're going to be bringing a lot of that business ethos to Paraguay. I'm really excited to go down there, see the country, see the substation. And, that big ominous hum when you're in a massive data hall with just like thousands of miners. When that happens in Paraguay, we'll have, drink some honey or something like that.
Let's go.
It's hot out this summer, and your ASICs might need some tender love and care. Contact Vitamine today for on-site ASIC repair. With Bitmain certified repair technicians, Vitamine has you covered, including repair shops in Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma, and Washington State. Or have them travel to your site and train your team. PSUs, immersion tanks, hashboards, and more. If you think ASIC repair, think Vitamine. And for a limited time only, use code MININGPOD to get 20% off your hashboard repair. Again, that's code MININGPOD to get 20% off your hashboard repair. Contact Dan today at dan@vmasic.com and let him know that the Mining Pod sent you.
I got a few questions while we have 10 minutes left that I'm just going to pop off to you guys. One is going back to Paraguay. How do you guys keep your costs low when you're expanding to different countries? What are some tricks you guys have? Redundancies software, or different ways?
We have an incredible software platform right, that often doesn't get talked about. But, if you look at Anthony Powers, who does a phenomenal job of tracking all the miners and keeping everybody honest, because he pays attention to how much Bitcoin you're actually mining based on the amount of, exahash you claim to have on or megawatts that are operational. And we're always in the top 2 or 3. I mean, for the longest time, we were at the very top. And so I think that, I know that comes from us having Bill Gray, our CTO, he's built a phenomenal platform that by the way, you have to keep expanding, right?
Yeah.
Because, we have, over 40,000 machines running globally, right? And so, when you were mining back in the day, you had 500 machines and it's 5,000, it's 20,000, it's 40,000. So you need to be able to send API commands and get responses within milliseconds, right? And so then physically, at the mine level, how are the staff trained to go triage situations and go find broken machines? Yeah, obviously you could reset machines, but you've got to go find broken hashboards, broken fans, repair them, have a good dialed in program. And so I think myself, Luke, we've been to all the sites that we run globally. He's our COO. So it's making sure that our site captains, and by the way, our site captains are usually travel, right? They come to the conferences as well.
Okay.
And so it's about having a really close dialogue between, Bill, Luke, and myself and all our site captains. And we're just, constantly looking at hash rate, right?
Yeah.
So everything rolls up to our pool, right? So you're going to know if your hash rate's down, something's up, right? So
it's every day, every day we know where our capital is, how many machines are in, where machines are moving around. Every morning is the call through 9 time zones. And it has to be 7 a.m. Aydin's on that call, wants to know, what's happening in Iceland. Why? Oh, there's a volcano. There's some dust, or they need the energy for a day. Okay, but he knows.
Or an hour curtailment in Quebec, just 1 hour. Yeah, right. But you got to do it, otherwise you get fined, right?
And so our goal, has always been to be 1% of the network.
Okay.
So always want to maintain 1%. And we're about there, because I think today is 450 Bitcoin a day.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to produce about 4.5 Bitcoin a day. So internally, we just have to get some newer machines in with this efficiency drive.
Yeah.
And then that'll take us up to almost what, 7? Aydin?
Well, I think once we get to
more than another exahash.
yeah, so we still have the last batch of so we announced 7,000, 1,000, 1,000, 9,000 S21 Pros.
Oh, nice.
9,000 S21s and Pros, sort of as a part of our halving strategy. 7 of those 9,000 have been installed. Remaining 2,000, some landed a few days ago, some are landing tomorrow. So basically, by the time all of those are installed and we're running at full capacity, we'll be close to 4.5 Bitcoin a day. If we upgrade, we still have some 30 joule per terahash machines. And so if we upgraded all of those, that'd be another 8,000 machine. That tack on an extra exahash. So we'd be, 5.5 going, pretty close to 7 actually, to Frank's point. So, depending where network difficulty is, we'll be, I think, over 4.5 Bitcoin a day at some point in the near future. But in the interim, we're targeting, 4.5 Bitcoin.
And based on this difficulty today, we'll be back to comfortably more than 1% of the global network of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And after we finish Paraguay, at this rate of the difficulty, we'd be 2% of the global network.
Yeah.
And so with the use, the scaling comes from the software, which I talked about earlier. And we have software team in Vienna that also oversee and communicate with us, and also run with the hedging book business. So they're here at the conference, and it's great for us all to get together and discuss things, what they're seeing, what they're hearing. And so that software will also be very compatible for everything in Paraguay. The big part will be to train the locals, and at the same time we'll have to hire a couple, maybe one real senior person. That's what we've found that we have to do, like in New
site
Brunswick.
Captain. You always have a site captain who's accountable for all his staff. So we've got one in Quebec, New Brunswick, Bowdoin. But just on the note of our guys from Austria, so they landed, took them 22 hours to get here. And it was so funny because they came straight to the team dinner. And one of the funniest things I've got to say is watching a guy from, Europe, Austria, get a plate of American pasta. And he was like, oh my God, this is so much pasta. Because Austria is close to Italy, right?
Yeah,
so you get a third. and so...
It's 5 ounces. I'm used to an ounce. So it was.
That's a great story.
It's a nice restaurant too, by the way.
But coming back is the biggest challenge of Paraguay is we're going to have to set up is time to fly there. I mean, you have to literally take fly into Europe or to Asia. It's a whole day there. It's a whole day coming back.
Yep.
Never mind the recuperating, your body, the fatigue, your brain, your time zone. But unfortunately, the time zone isn't a big distance. You have to fly to Houston. There's no direct flights. You have to go through Panama. You go through Sao Paulo.
You guys need a private jet service.
That's something is really expensive. I would feel I'm just too frugal, and so is Aydin to think that way. Because it's a long flight. You know what? The private at 10,000 an hour. At all of a sudden you're 10 hours down there, 10 hours back. So
and everyone's not coming from the same place, right? So maybe what we've done is we've taken a prop plane, gotten half a dozen analysts, flown people from Toronto to New Brunswick to see the facility. Right. But that there's when you break it on $1 per person, it's almost like flying commercial. But you're going to get a private jet, go to Montreal, to Vancouver, to Texas, pick everybody up, then go down to Paraguay. I don't know what that costs.
It's not our style.
It's not our style.
I got one question for you guys because you guys have to run in a second. And this is probably unfair to ask at the end. How are you guys thinking about breaking up this new site or future sites between AI, HPC, and Bitcoin mining? What's the golden method for this?
That's a good question. So basically, we have a long-term vision because we own or have the option to purchase sites in our portfolio. And so we've been contemplating this. And what's really interesting is that we actually have optionality to convert existing facilities over 50 megawatts in sites that we either own the land or have an option that operate on the land with an option to purchase. And so 50 megawatts of AI compute is massive, right? Like that's a lot. And when you convert it all to tier 3, you're going to have about 2/3 of usable power because you have cooling and redundancy, et cetera. But it's a lot, right? When you think about how many NVIDIA Blackwell clusters you can fit into a megawatt, you scale that out to like the 10 megawatt, like the biggest of the biggest. There's an incredible article on Semi-Analysis about the race to build a 100,000 H100 cluster, and you'll need about 150 megawatts for that. That doesn't exist yet. Single site 150 megawatt AI that's got 100,000 H100 clusters. So that's the hyperscaler level, right? So we realize in our arsenal, we have facilities, and this isn't like, people talk about pipeline and they're like, oh, we got a gigawatt of pipeline. Well, what is this, like moose pasture? And like, you're going to like, these are like existing operating voltages step down to 240, right? You put a UPS, some cooling, some redundancy. And by the way, in data centers, they're always talking about raised floors. In crypto mines, everything's already overhead because we have like concrete floors. And so you could just do everything over. I mean, I'm not going to give away the secret sauce here, but
I think
Will, too much
for your listeners, when you look at a data center that's ASIC, Bitcoin mining, you have to immediately look at $1 million a megawatt infrastructure spending.
Yeah.
It's really simple. 100 megawatts, 100 million.
Yeah.
That's what you have to immediately. It's like the back of the envelope scope out. HPC, 10 million a megawatt.
More sometimes. Yeah, it's crazy.
Which GPUs, it's an additional 50.
Excluding the chips. Excluding the chips. Now you're hitting 20.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, you're going to be able to spend 100 million over here and spend 100 million for only 10 megawatts. You actually get the same revenue. That's the real why the HPC is so exciting for people looking at it. But the complexity of how to do it. We see other people, they say they've got how many hundreds of H100s out. We have 94?
96.
So 96. And we make more money. Yeah. So you're scratching, how could you have so many more machines than us?
Yeah.
Or someone else that has twice the electricity and Bitcoin mining and produce less Bitcoin than us?
Yeah.
So I think that the industry is going to go through what we're seeing is the big value is energy. So you can see some of the headlines. I got 200 megawatts in East Texas or West Texas, et cetera. But where, how much? Because there's a sea change that happened this year when besides a Bitcoin ETF, which is really key to all of a sudden making a change to Bitcoin miners, and I saw this in 2003 with the GLD bullion ETF changed the valuations for gold stocks. So we'll go through this transition, but energy. So when AWS bought the access to 900 megawatts of electricity for $650 million, all of a sudden nuclear is green.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. But because it's Amazon, and Amazon realizes the significance of sourcing that energy that is steady, then you see CoreWeave go after Core Scientific. They say no. Then all of a sudden CoreWeave is spending for their infrastructure spend. Why? Because they have the energy.
Yeah.
And so we say, okay, what happens if we come up with 50 megawatts of tier 3 to build out for? Well, what's the value if you have the energy for 50 megawatts? Capital markets now say $2 million to $3 million because you have that energy. So I think you're seeing all these shifts in the past few months on the value of uranium, nuclear reactors, all of a sudden the value of sourcing energy. Why? Because the hyperscalers are coming in and looking at the Bitcoin miners that actually, Fred Thiel said it well, they're going to start talking negative about us.
Yeah.
Why? To get our energy.
Yep.
And so we just feel we're quietly going through that transition and we're throwing off free cash flow every day. Yeah. And we have a big vision of just scaling it like we did Paraguay.
Yeah. Well, Frank, Aydin, thank you so much for joining the Mining Pod. It's great to see you guys again. We'll get you off to your lunch, but
again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Will. Great
Awesome.
interview, man. Anytime.
You look up. That's how high Bitcoin's going.
I love it.